Hi, my name is Susan Scanlan. I am from the class of 1969, the Fat City class, and I'm a Sweetbriar woman.
So what did you study at Sweetbriar?
I had a terrible urge to major in everything. First I said French, and then I said modern languages, and then I said, oh, but English is so wonderful. So I have a double major in French, Spanish, and Italian, which were modern languages, and then English.
Sounds quite literary.
It is, and as I've often told people, and with that and $2.65, I can get on the metro. It never occurred to me that I was going to have a career. I assumed I was going to get married and be the ornament on some man's table.
From the way you talk about that, I assume that was not the case. What did you do after graduation?
Well, first, the night on the White Charger, he never showed up until I was 31. Okay, so I had to do stuff in between. And so the first thing I did was go to graduate school. And this was during the Vietnam War. And that meant that all young men were subject to the draft, which meant that graduate schools were taking more women. And so I got a free ride to go to Tulane University in New Orleans and got a master's degree in French and Italian. I was supposed to get a PhD, but thank God I came to my senses and realized there were no jobs. So I stopped with a master's.
After graduating Sweetbriar, did you feel prepared to enter graduate school?
Oh, I was supremely confident. That's the good thing about having gone to an all-women's school. They taught us how to stand on our own 2 feet and not to yield and be submissive to men. I've always said, if I had gone to a co-ed school, I'd have been married by my sophomore year. There's just no way I wouldn't have. And instead, I came to Sweetbriar where I made friends with women, and I had women role models, and I had the opportunity to do scholarship, because we never even put on makeup or washed our hair until Friday nights, and then you go off for the weekend. I'm sure it's the same now. I had time to think, and I learned to be a wonderful writer. That's perhaps the greatest skill I brought from Sweetbriar: confidence and the ability to write.
So after graduate school, how did you segue into a career path?
I backed into it like everyone in my generation, the class of 1965, did, while I was waiting to find the night with the White Charger and have my 2.6 children, which is what was expected of me. I said, well, I better earn a living. And the one thing I was really interested in was politics. I had been chair at Sweetbriar of a movement, a Time magazine project called Choice 68, and it was when Hubert Humphrey was running against Richard Nixon. And by the way, Nixon won. And of course, I was on the other side. But anyway, I organized, we had speeches, we had, I got everyone to come out and vote. We were one of the top schools. And I thought, geez, that's fun. So I decided I'd like to work on Capitol Hill. So I called a friend of mine who knew someone, and I got a job in the office of Congressman Charlie Wilson. I don't know if you've seen the movie Charlie Wilson's War. Do see it if you want to learn about politics and have it be a page-turner. Tom Hanks plays my old boss. And I got the job. I remember the salary was $7,500 a year. And I was like, oh, I'm rich, I'm rich. And then I went home and I read How a Bill Becomes a Law, because I had not taken but one government course when I was at Sweetbriar. But remember, I could write. And so I got in the office and I found my sea legs, and Charlie allowed me to write the legislation to get women into the military academies. This was in 1972, 73, and it never occurred to me that anyone would oppose it. And talk about running into a buzzsaw. But eventually we won, And I went up to Beast Barracks at West Point, and I met the first class, the class of 1980. And the most interesting thing happened. We had nominated a 6-foot-tall woman who was a hurdler, and she had washed out before I got up there, just gone. And so I looked around at the women who were still there. They'd been there maybe 6 weeks, and they were all 5'2" and weighed like 110 pounds. And I thought, not the 6-footers. And it turned out the #1 skill you had to have to survive at West Point, if you were a woman, was to be able to pull yourself up on a rope. It was upper body strength, which my generation didn't have. We didn't do athletics, you understand that. Other than horseback riding, we didn't break a sweat, you know, for 4 years at Sweetbriar. And so that's who made it. And the class of 1980, the last one retired last year as a general. And I've always felt so vested in that subject, women in the military.
It's incredible. So did you feel more or less did you feel more or less prepared than your contemporaries who went to co-ed institutions to enter into the political world?
I felt more prepared because at Sweetbriar, everybody's opinion counted, and there wasn't a man standing up there saying who could talk and who couldn't talk, or a man sitting in the classroom standing up and, you know, pontificating, and women being humble and, you know, just not venturing to make questions. I have spent my whole life in the women's movement, so I know a lot about women's education and the subtle discrimination against women in classrooms. For example, if you have a co-ed classroom, the professor, and this will be male or female, will call the boys, and particularly younger boys, because they want to encourage them, they'll call them by name. Hey, Tom, yeah, tell me what, good idea, not quite right, but, and then they'll just say, oh, and you, oh, you can answer the rest of the question. Subtle put-downs. When a woman is talking, they'll look at their watch. You know, subtle things, that body language that we all realize demeans someone, and it's always the women who get demeaned. So I feel like I had a chance to blossom when I would have been observing men blossoming at a co-ed school.
So do you think you could tell us a little bit about what you remember of your time at Sweetbriar now?
You're gonna make me cry. It was the best 4 years of my entire life, and I promise you as well. It's the lost days of youth when I was skinny and had hair I could sit on, and you know, I was really glamorous and good looking and knew everything. Of course, when you're 20 years old, you know everything. You just get stupider right after that. I had 3 roommates who were in writing. I was a scholarship student, and so writing was sort of out of the question. But I observed them, and the athletics, participating on a team or doing something athletic, gave them strength and conviction and character that I didn't have. And I knew that something was missing for me. But then again, 2 of them were head of writing, which in those days was more important than being May Queen. Our class was the last one to have a May Queen. Anyway, the 3 of them, I'm still close with them. They still ride, 67 years old. One has a pin in her ankle. One has a pin in her shoulder. One has had so many concussions that she tried to enlist in the military at age 21 and they wouldn't take her. So when Title IX got discussed, I was there the day they passed Title IX in the Senate. It's so incredible because we had no idea that athletics would be involved. We just assumed that girls would get scholarships, that women professors would get tenure or get to be heads of departments, that girls basketball teams could have uniforms same as boys, those kinds of things. But we never thought that women would become athletes, and that was the law of unintended consequences. We changed the nature of women through Title IX. And as I say, one of the senators, old guy from Alabama says, I got 2 strapping daughters and a mighty dull son, and I think my girls should get an education, same as Bubba. I'm going to vote for this bill if the majority leader can guarantee me one thing. And Birch Bayh of Indiana was the majority leader in the fight for Title IX. And he said, oh, of course, the senator from Alabama, what do you need to know? He says, I want you to guarantee me that this legislation will have no adverse impact on football. And Birch Bayh, in all honesty, said, football? We're talking about book learning. We're talking, you know. And you need to know, this was when Gerald Ford was president, and Republicans were human beings. I know you're not going to be able to use that in your film. But the bill passed overwhelmingly. I think it was like 83 votes aye. So, and with that vote, we changed who you are today, because you've played on a team, haven't you?
Yes.
I've never played on a team in my whole life. And I grew up in Alexandria. I never was allowed to wear pants from first grade through college. That's, 20 years, I couldn't wear pants. So what do you think I got on now? I'm not going back to skirts. Oh, no.
I am wearing pants under the skirts.
Oh, good for you. Man, it is cold. Yeah.
Oh, gosh. You are so interesting.
Oh. Tell that to my husband. He's saying he's going to write a book called Born to be Nagged. No, I think everything, well, I want to bring back me at 120 pounds. I want to bring back me before everything happened and I could become an art historian or a landscape designer, 2 careers, one of which I could have, but I was too stupid to realize. It was like growing up in a paradise. It was paradise. It was quiet. You could go outside and you could read by the stars sometimes. You were living in this perfect, perfect place. And there were enough girls that you could make friends and have a group or not. And of course I've idealized it. It's been 46 years. But I am still close to all of my classmates. We'd get together for mini reunions. We all remember each other and all the dumb things we did. You have to have license to be stupid at some point and do foolish things, and we certainly did. And I'll tell you the other thing is none of us were career-minded like you are. You both know that you're going to have to get a job when you get out. You both know that even if you get married, your husband is probably not going to be able to support you on one job. And there's almost a 50-50 chance that you're going to get divorced and have to be a single mom or at least support yourself. So our worldview was totally altered. The birth control pill had just come on the market, and nobody admitted if they took it. Oh my goodness, no. And there were all kinds of sort of weird rules. Okay, here's a good one. My first physical education course was called Relaxation and Posture. And, oh, by the way, the Sweetbriar pink and green uniform that had like a skirt to here cost $46. That was like $125 today. But it was a great, once the miniskirts came in, my sister took my uniform and she wore it all the time. It was a Sweetbriar pink and green plaid, of course. And anyway, so we were taught how to walk, and we were taught how to go to sleep. Man, I could do that right now. I want to see how well I learned. But there's no computers. Imagine that. There were no faxes. Long distance cost a fortune. People wrote letters. Can you imagine this? Letters. Letters are pieces of paper in which people use ink and they write in their own hand. I have wonderful handwriting. Can you imagine that? People ask me to address their daughter's wedding invitations. So there's all these skill sets that I have that you don't have. You don't need to read a map. You don't need to wear a watch because you got it on your phone, don't you? But what does my generation have? We look each other in the eye because we're not sitting all day long like this, you know, getting all our information. It was a better time and it was a worse time, but it was our time. And I would not be who I was if it weren't for Sweetbriar. I owe Sweetbriar just about everything.